Hello and welcome back to the part two of the syllabus overview. The first part of the video went over the assignments. Now we're looking at course policies. The first part of the course policies is defining the week. It may seem silly, but I think it's good to do. I don't like any ambiguity. I've been in several online classes myself, and I just want to make sure that things are clear. So, the week begins on the Monday. So, August 25th and ends on Sunday, August 30th. That last day is when everything needs to be turned in. There will be some things that are due throughout the week. Those are marked. Check your calendar, look at the syllabus. That's an important thing because I want you to try to log on several times a week. It is not fun. It is not recommended to try to do everything on the weekend before it's due. You'll feel pressed for time. You'll feel bored. You're gonna feel like you don't want to be there. I know we are all busy. However, planning your time is part of just growing up, being a student, being an adult. Um, there's never enough hours in the day, and we have to budget. So Monday, I recommend reading and watching the video introduction, seeing what you have to do, scheduling what assignments are due when in a planner or your calendar. Look at that workload. And then on Wednesday, Saturday, try to do the reading, complete as many assignments as you can. Then Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, try to get those last things finished. If you just try to do it all in 2 hours on a Saturday, every Saturday, that's not really like being in a class. That's just, filling out a checklist. You don't have time to think, you don't have time to process. And writing is thinking, reading is thinking. Those are the concepts we're going to start to look at. And I want you to develop. This is not like just reading something and taking multiple choice quizzes. We aren't doing any of that. We are trying to express our ideas in words. And that's hard sometimes because they don't always work for us. We'll submit everything through Blackboard, of course. The major assignments will be through Turnitin. Everything else will be discussion boards and journals. Um, but everything must be turned in by the due date. Most of the time, the accept late papers will be turned off. um, I won't accept anything submitted by email unless I've asked for it because there's been an issue. Don't try to mail me papers. I mean, I've received papers in my mailbox and things like that. It just doesn't work. Um, Everybody is subject to the same standards. So that means Blackboard. All right. Exceptions will include when Blackboard or Turnitin is having an issue, which sometimes happens. But if your password changes and you didn't get it fixed, that's on you. If you log in multiple times a week, you should know what's going on. But ultimately, the best thing, if you have an unfinished piece of writing, go ahead and turn it in. Write me a little note saying this is not done because I usually allow for revisions of our major assignments. Um, so it's better to have something poorly done but done than trying to have perfect but never done, if that makes sense. You got to turn something in so you can get a grade. Big thing is save your work in more than one place. Hard drive, your cloud drive, email. Things happen. You might get locked out of an account, um, and you might need that work. Use the drafts feature. And I know Google Docs has it. I don't know so much about Word, but I think it does. Have those because if you're, accused not maybe in my class, but another class of using AI or plagiarism of some sort, having those documents, those drafts can be useful. Um, Other policies, late work. So work expected by the due date. That's life, right? Things have due dates. We can't keep extending things indefinitely. Assignments will not be able to be submitted past the due date, and any draft will be automatically submitted. Um, I think that's how that works, because some people type things as drafts. If there's a missed due date, contact me. You'll submit it for the late work. I've already showed where that is in the course tour. Otherwise, it's going to get a zero. Um, that's just the way things go. If you're missing like at 10 points or whatever, that is not going to ruin your life. It's not going to fail you for the course, nothing like that. So sometimes it's just best to let some things go. You don't have to be perfect. Peer review, there'll be some group sessions where we do peer review. We read each other's papers and provide feedback. So just be aware that I am not the only person reading your work. Revision policy, um, the major papers that get an 85% or lower can be revised. I do expect a 250 word reflection and for you to highlight some way your revision so I can actually see what you've changed. I will be looking at several copies of your draft and providing feedback, so it's important to include that. Think about that, reflect on it, make changes. I received too many students whose first draft is their final draft, even after I made spend a lot of time providing feedback. So please, if I'm telling you to change something, maybe consider changing it, or have a good reason why you didn't change it. And that's why I include reflections. Attendance difficult on an online course, but I should be seeing you check in several times. Um, that's the important thing. This is a 3 hour course, which meets for 2.5 hours a week. That is just lecture time. And then um, you have homework, right? So you might have heard before somewhere that expect to have spend like 2 hours outside of class for every hour inside class. Well, um, that might be a little too much for me on most weeks, unless you have something, a big assignment. So plan at least 3 to 6 hours a week for this course. That way you have extra time if it's free time, but it's planned, it's scheduled in there. Financial aid, I keep track of attendance. If you don't pass, I'm asked to enter in your last day of attendance so that can affect your financial aid. So just attend every class. Communication, we'll use email. I've mentioned that before. I will get back to you within 24 hours. If I don't, send me another message because sometimes things get lost, um, that sort of stuff. I do send out an end of the week wrap up every week, usually either Friday or Sunday, and talk about the next week. I've mentioned office hours already. I've mentioned group work before. All of our communication is going to be through Blackboard. So please be courteous, be respectful. And then academic integrity. I have a long definition of plagiarism, but it's basically anything that is not written originally by you. If you're claiming you wrote something, but it was written by somebody else, it was copied and pasted from a source or it's AI, that is not your original work, and that is plagiarism. So that's another reason why we do drafts, so I can tell you, hey, this isn't correct. This needs to be your own words. Turnitin does do a plagiarism check. It does have AI. Neither of those things are foolproof or um, perfect. So um, there can be false um, flagging of AI, and it's up to you to provide drafts and things like that to defend yourselves. So that's an important thing. But your thoughts, your ideas are what matter, and that's what I'm grading. Um, so anything that is plagiarized, lacks appropriate citation, receives a 0, no opportunity to revise. That's intentional. There is accidental. Um, it does happen, and these are discussions that we have to have. AI generated text. You are the author of all your work. We're going to be using AI throughout the course, but brainstorming, drafting, checking grammar. We don't use it to write our drafts. We don't use it to write entire sentences, paragraphs, or assignments. And people have done it even last semester, and they did not do too well. So um, I don't even have to use an AI checker sometimes. I can just tell because either the student's paper just appears magically one day after no drafts, or um, we've talked about the paper and it's nowhere near what we talked about, that sort of stuff. So don't use AI to write your work. Use it for other things that might be useful. That's it. Grading distribution, typical standard, 90 through 100. If you have, like, let's say an 88.5, I would probably round that up, right? Because I'm especially if you've done all the work and things like that. So I'd round that up to a 90, and that would be okay. Um, Lastly, this is a general rough outline of everything in the class. Um, we might not hit 1,400 points, we might have more, but that's the way things go. And then lastly, I do treat my students equally. Comes to equal adherence of policies. Some of you are in high school, which happens. Some of you have jobs. Um, I can't say, well, I'll allow high school students extra leniency and not someone who's working two jobs. That's not fair, and I can't show favoritism to someone who's working two jobs and not to high school students. So I have to be as equal as possible. I've had students contact me at the end of the semester after having done no work and say, I'm not going to graduate high school. I need to make up all my work. Or they might lose a scholarship. That is not fair to anybody. Your work is your work, and you're responsible for doing that. So I can't grant you, a third chance. If you're falling behind, contact me, and then we can work things out. Usually it goes well. And then we have our college policies, which are also in Blackboard, and I'm not going to go over in this video. I will do that in the next video.